Hi guys, welcome back to our week 6 meeting. Let's get started. I see some people is already here. Andrea's here and Jenna's here. All right, that's good. Now, guys, if you check your grade on D12, I already adjusted your grade for the actual credit. So if you look on there, it should be including your actual grade for the test itself and also including actual credit. Now, if you notice anything missing, or if you think that I missed a point or two, send me an email and then I check for you and adjust it for you. Okay. So let's talk about our week 6. Oh, guys, by the way, for those of you who just joined in, make sure to sign in the chat box on the top right corner. Make sure that you put your name in there. Just say hi, and then so I know you're here, and it gets you actually recorded. Okay. So see, we have right now 5 people watching the chat right now, but only 2 of you already signed up. So everybody else, make sure put your name in there. So just say hi, and then I'll see who you are. All right, let's talk about chapter 7 and chapter 8 today. And again, guys, just like before, if you have any questions, let me know. Just ask a question in the chat box, and I will answer right away. Well, as soon as I see it. Okay. So let me do screen sharing. All right, so chapter 7. Now, chapter 7 it's a pretty short chapter and it's very straightforward. So I'm hoping that you guys will find this assignment pretty easy. All right, so let's talk about this. So something about consumer surplus, producer surplus, and the efficient of the market. And then for consumer surplus, the first thing to know is what is this thing called willingness to pay for the good. So what this is the maximum price you're willing to pay for the good. So for our example over here, we're going to talk about iPod, and then we have 4 consumers. So different consumers have different preference and different willingness to pay. And then for Anthony, he's willing to pay $250 for the iPod. Chad is $175. Flea is $300, and then John is $125. So each one of the persons willing to pay is how much the maximum amount they're willing to pay for this good. All right. And if let's say we have a price for the iPod is at $200. Now, at different price level, our quantity demanded is very different. So according to, remember, law of demand for chapter 4, that when the price is higher, we buy less. When the price is lower, we buy more. And then one can use this willingness to pay to see how much we're going to buy at different price level. So when the price is at $200, for the 4 consumers over here, let's say who's going to buy the good. So Anthony is willing to pay $250 for the good, but the price only $200. So price too high, he wouldn't buy it. I'm sorry, just reverse that. So Anthony willing to pay $250, price $200. He's willing to pay more than the price, so he will buy the good. Now Chad will be different. So Chad is willing to pay $175, but the price $200. So the price is already above his budget. So at this price level, Chad wouldn't buy this good anymore. And then Flea, she's willing to pay $300. The price is only $200, so she will also buy the good. And the last one, John is only willing to pay $125, and the price for the good is $200. So John wouldn't buy this good. So when the price $200, our quantity demanded is going to be 2 consumers. And you can use this information to draw the demand curve. And then for our demand curve, so when the price is from 301 and above, for between these 4 consumers, at this price level, so 300 and above, nobody will buy it, and then quantity demanded will be 0. And when the price is between 251 to 300, Anthony wouldn't buy anymore because Anthony is willing to pay 250, but this is 251. So Anthony wouldn't buy. Only Flea will buy this good at this price level. And then our quantity demand is 1. And then from 176 to 250, your Flea will buy it, Anthony will buy it, but Chad wouldn't buy it. So we're going to have 2 consumers. So Flea and Anthony. And then when the price is between 125 to 175, you're gonna have Anthony, Chad, and Flea, and then John wouldn't buy it. So Flea, Anthony, and Chad. So 3 people. And then last one, on the price from 0 to 125, then everyone will buy this good. So the quantity demanded is 4 now. So with this information, we can draw our demand curve. Hi, Robert. Let's draw the demand curve. So when the price is from 301 and above, so it's about this price level. So quantity demanded is 0, so it's going to stay over here. When the price level is at 251 and 300, so 251 and 300, we're going to be at this price level. There we go. So it looks like a little staircase, and it's going down as you go down on the quantity demanded. Now, don't feel scared about this demand curve. Sure looks different, but just tell you the same information. So when the price at this level over here, quantity demand is 1. When the price level this over here, quantity demand is 2. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's all it says. Okay. Now, let's talk about this surplus. So the consumer surplus is the amount that buyers are willing to pay minus how much buyer actually paid. So I'm going to take our so consumer surplus CS equals to your WTP, your willing to pay for the good, or WPP can spell. So willing to pay for the good minus the price of the good. So it's how much money do you save when you actually buy the good. Now let's suppose you want to buy a new computer, and then your budget is $500. You go to the store, you bought a computer you want to buy, and it costs you $400. So which means you saved $100. And this $100 you saved, we call this consumer surplus. So it's how much money do you save when you actually buy the good. All right, so when the price is 260 over here, when the price is 260, Anthony wouldn't buy the good. Chad wouldn't buy the good. Flea will buy the good. John wouldn't buy the good. So only one consumer buy the good, which means our consumer surplus is only coming from this one consumer. So for this case, our consumer surplus is how much Flea is willing to pay as $300 minus the price of the good 260. So her consumer surplus is 40. And then if you show this on the graph, the consumer surplus, so at price of 60, so somewhere over here. So this is 60. So your consumer surplus is the difference between your demand curve and your price line. And this area is your consumer surplus. Now, let's suppose the price goes down. Suppose the price goes down from 260 to 220. Now at 220, your consumer surplus again is the area between your demand curve and your price line. So below the demand curve, above the price line, that's your consumer surplus. So it'll be this entire area and this little piece over here. And that is your consumer surplus. And the reason why your consumer surplus increased, remember, consumer surplus is your WTP minus your price. So for the first consumer, Flea, if you remember, her willing to pay was $300 and then price at 220. So she saved $80. And the next one, Anthony. Anthony? Let me make sure. Okay, Anthony. Okay, it's not Anthony. So for Anthony, oh, starting out here, what a mess. I'm sorry, guys. So Anthony is willing to pay $250. The price is $220. So Anthony saves $30. So for this entire market, your total consumer surplus will be the 80 from Flea plus 30 from Anthony. So it'll be 110. That is your total consumer surplus. Okay. Let me show you a simple one that you're going to see on the test, also on the quiz. So suppose given this demand curve over here, and the price level is at 30. what you need to remember is that your consumer surplus is always below the demand curve, above the price line. So this area over here, this is our consumer surplus. And then to find the consumer surplus, all I'm going to do is just find the area of a triangle. So for this triangle, remember the area of a triangle is what? Base times height over 2. So we're going to use our vertical distance times horizontal distance and divided by 2. So the vertical distance is from 30 to 60. That's a 30. The horizontal distance is from 0 to 15. That's a 15 divided by 2. So 30 times 15 divided by 2. Let's see what this equals to. So it's 225. And that is your consumer surplus. All right. Okay, so does anybody have any question right now? How to find a consumer surplus? All right, no questions? Okay, so if no question, let's continue. Now, the blue area representing our consumer surplus, and every time when the price change, our consumer surplus will change. So let's suppose if the price goes down from 30 to 20. Now, at the price of 20, so at, oh, that's bad. So at the price of 20, let me just draw this. Yeah, guys, I know the PowerPoint give you a $40, for example, but let's do 20 for now. So when the price goes down to 20, this big triangle here is our new consumer surplus. But let's look at how this is different from the $30. So from the $30, this area over here, this rectangle, this representing the money saved for the old consumers. And then this small triangle, this is the money saved from your new or marginal consumers. So make sure you know what the difference is. So this rectangle over here on the bottom, that's the money saved by the old consumer who still buy the good, but now they're paying a lower price now. And then this triangle over here, the small triangle, that's the consumer surplus given to new consumers who are just into the market. Okay, so that's the difference. Okay, all right, and then make sure you know that to find an area for this rectangle, it's base times height. So don't divide it by 2 now. That's only for triangle. And then for triangle over here, base times height divided by 2. Okay, let's keep going. Let's keep this. All right, and then next for supply. So cost. Cost is the value of everything seller must give up to produce a good. And then for our cost over here for this chapter, just think about your production cost. So we'll have 3 producers over here. Each one produce a long cutting service. And then 3 producers have different cost structures. So for Jack, it costs him $10. Jeanette is 20 and Chrissy is 35. And then for this for business over here, depends on what the price is. Each business will have different preference over how much they want to sell. So suppose the current price for the service is at from $0 to $9. Now at $0 to $9, nobody will produce the good because the price too low and the cost is too high, and there's no profit. Remember, the goal of every single producer is to maximize their profit. And in chapter 7, they call this the producer surplus. So when the price from 0 to 9, wouldn't do it. But when the price from 10 to 19, then Jack would do it. Because Jack, his cost is lower. So let's say the price is $14, then Jack will still make a profit of $4. But for everybody else, they'll lose money. So so this will be just 1. Jack will do it. And then from 20 to 34, both Jack and Jeanette will do it because their cost is lower and they'll make a profit. Now, if the price is $35 and above, then everybody will do it. So the quantity supply becomes 3. And if you draw your supply curve, very much like a demand curve, so like a little staircase. So again, all this is just shows you different quantity level at different price level. So this is 1, and this is 2, this is 3. Okay, so nothing to it. Now, let me show you definition for producer surplus. So producer surplus is the difference between the amount the seller is getting paid minus the seller's cost. So for this market over here, this would be the price minus the cost. That's your producer surplus. And then let me show you what that looks like on a regular demand supply curve. So on the regular supply curve, let's suppose the price is at $40. At $40, your producer surplus is below the price line, above the supply curve, and this area, that is your producer surplus. So again, just looking for the area of a triangle. So it's going to be base times height over 2. So I'm going to do the vertical distance is from 25. So 15 to 40, that's 25, times the horizontal distance. This is 25 again, so 20, well, that should be 25. So 25 times 25 divided by 2, that's your producer surplus. So let me see what that is. So 25 times 25 divided by 2, your answer is going to be 312.5. Okay, so that's your producer surplus. And then next, this is not really important. Does anybody have any question right now for consumer surplus, producer surplus? No? Okay. All right. And then last part, let's talk about total surplus. So the goal of every single consumer is to maximize our consumer surplus. The goal of every single producer is to maximize our producer surplus. And the goal of every single economy, like I said, I think this might be a quiz question. So the goal of every single economy is to maximize our total surplus. So consumer surplus is the P or the WTP minus your price, and then producer surplus is going to be your price minus your cost, and then total surplus is the sum between your consumer surplus and producer surplus, and that is your total surplus. Okay, let me show you what that looks like on the graph over here. So guys, for chapter 7, if you know how to do the graph, you're pretty good. You're pretty much set for chapter 7. All right. So for this market over here, the price is at $30. Your consumer surplus is the triangle on the top. So below the demand curve, above the price line, that's your consumer surplus. And then producer surplus will be the triangle below. This is your producer surplus. So below price line, above the supply curve. And then your total surplus between your consumer surplus and producer surplus. So this big entire triangle, that is your total surplus. So let's do numbers. So consumer surplus, the vertical distance from 30 to 60, that's a 30, times the horizontal distance from 0 to 15, that's a 15. So divided by 2, I think we said this is 225. And then producer surplus, from 15 to 30, that's a 15. And then that's another 15 horizontally. And then divided by 2, that's what this is. So 15 times 15 divided by 2, this is 112.5. And then lastly, your total surplus is your consumer surplus plus producer surplus. Ooh. So the answer should be 337.5. Okay, so that's how we do the consumer surplus, producer surplus, total surplus. All right, I think that's it for chapter 7. Okay, so that's it for chapter 7. Does anybody have any question about chapter 7 right now? Anybody want me to go over some of the problems in the homework for chapter 7? All right, so if you guys do, let me wait a little bit, okay, just in case you guys want to say yes. Okay, all right, if no questions, then let's go to chapter 8. All right, so chapter 8 is the cost of taxation. Now this is based off your chapter 6. So if you are a little confused about chapter 6, you're gonna have a little problem with chapter 7, chapter 8. All right. Okay, so let's look at this market again. Over here we have a market over here. Supply demand curve and an intersections equilibrium. Now, first, let's identify what is our consumer surplus and what is our producer surplus. So your consumer surplus, here, let me just start over. I'm sorry, guys. Now a little review from chapter 6. When you have a market over here, that's your equilibrium price. That's how much the price was. Once you put a tax, the tax is the difference between how much buyer pays and how much seller receive. So once you have a tax, your buyer pays this much, seller receive this much. Remember, this is your tax revenue. All right, so let's see how the consumer surplus and producer surplus apply to this question over here. Now, with no tax, so under no tax, our consumer surplus will be below the demand curve, above this price line. So this area over here, that's your consumer surplus. So if this is A, this is B, this is C, then consumer surplus would be A plus B plus C. Now, your producer surplus will be the triangle below that. So that will be this triangle over here. So then let's call this one D, E, and F. So producer surplus is D plus E plus F. And then your total surplus is A plus B plus C plus D plus E plus F. So that's your total surplus. All right, now let's say we have a tax. So with a tax, there we go. So this is your new price for buyers. This is the new price for sellers. Now, once this happens, your new consumer surplus is again below the demand curve, above the price line. But make sure you know which price line to go from. It's not this middle line anymore. The price line for buyers will be at PB. So this new price for buyers, and then your consumer surplus is this small triangle on top. So that's your consumer surplus. And then producer surplus is above the supply curve and then below the price line. And again, make sure you know which price line I'm talking about. Okay, so for this price line will be this PS over here. So this triangle over here is our producer surplus. So that's the F. Our tax revenue, so how much money is given to the government, is area B and D. So this is your tax revenue. And then your total surplus is your consumer surplus plus producer surplus. And then if you have a tax, it's also plus your tax revenue. So your total surplus is going to be area A, B, D, and F. Now, if you notice that this part, this was our old total surplus, right? This is your old consumer surplus. This is your old producer surplus. But now with the tax, nobody have this anymore. So this area C and E, we have a name for it. This is the inefficiency. We call this one the dead weight loss. So what dead weight loss is? Dead weight loss is the loss of total surplus that's result from a market distortion, such as a tax. So in this market over here, then when our price goes down, sorry, when the tax increase and then the price for buyer goes up, the price for seller goes down, then we're going to have a decrease in quantity, and this will cause a tax distortion. And this is called the dead weight loss. And this is bad. So for economy, we don't want to have a dead weight loss. The smaller, the better. All right, so let's try this question over here. So first, we need to find out our consumer surplus and producer surplus without tax, so no tax. Now, no tax, then this will be your price line. So the top triangle is consumer surplus. So before tax, your consumer surplus is going to be the vertical distance, which is 200 times your horizontal distance, which is 100 divided by 2. This should give you 10,000. And then your producer surplus, your vertical distance from 0 to 200, that's again 200. Distance is 100 divided by 2. This would be 10,000. And then your total surplus is the sum between the two. So 10,000 plus 10,000 to give you a 20,000 total surplus. Now, with a tax, we're going to put a $100 tax on it. And with a $100 tax, this difference over here, this is $100. And that's how much your tax is. And then this price at $250, this is the price for buyer. And this price at $150, that's your price for seller. So next, to find out what is our new consumer surplus, this small triangle or smaller triangle, that's your new consumer surplus. So CS equals the vertical distance from 250 to 400, that's 150. Horizontal distance 75 divided by 2. Let's see what this is. 150 times 75 divided by 2. This is 5625. And then your producer surplus will be this small triangle on the bottom. Vertical distance 150. Horizontal distance 75 divided by 2. So 150 times 75 divided by 2, again, is 5625. And then our tax revenue, so this will be your tax revenue over here. So this rectangle right here, that's your tax revenue. So the vertical distance is 100. The horizontal distance is going to be 75. So 7,500. And then your total revenue or total surplus is your CS plus PS plus your tax. So 5625 plus 5625 plus 7,500. So it's 18,750. All right, and then this small that we lost, let's find the area too. So vertical distance is going to be 100. Horizontal distance 25. And divided by 2. So this should be 1250. Okay, so that's our that we lost. All right, does anybody have any question right now? Or how to find the consumer surplus or producer surplus or that we lost and total surplus? Wait for a second. All right, okay, very good, Robert. So no questions, then let's keep going. Now we talk about elasticity in chapter 6. So elasticity determine how much each party pays for tax. Elasticity also play a part into our deadweight loss and also the efficiency on the market. Now, it might be counterintuitive to think about this, but remember this: if the market is very elastic, so between your consumers and producers, the market is very elastic, then if you have a tax on the market, the deadweight loss will be huge. Because once you have a tax, consumers or producers, we're going to change our behavior. And once we change behavior, the deadweight loss is very, very big. But if you have a very inelastic market, so everybody have to buy the good or everybody have to sell the good, then once you put a tax on the market, everybody's very inelastic. Then we don't change behaviors. Then we don't change behaviors. we don't have any debt weight loss. So the more elastic the market is, the more debt weight loss you have. The more inelastic the market is, the less debt weight loss you have. Okay, so remember that. All right, let me keep going. Let's see what else to talk about. This might be it for chapter 8 to I think we talk about everything so far. This is important. Rapid curve, you might see this somewhere in your quiz. So this shows you the trade-off between the size of the tax and the government tax revenue. Now imagine if currently, so let's suppose that our current tax rate is 100%. So whatever income is, you pay 100% tax. Now, once that happens, nobody wants to work anymore. So if nobody work, guess what? Nobody pay for tax. So at 100% tax rate, our tax revenue will be 0. Now, so from this point, if you want to increase our tax revenue, we should lower our tax rate. So lower tax rate give people more incentive to work. Now, vice versa, if we talk about on the other extreme, suppose our tax is at 0%. So 0% tax, how much is our tax revenue? Nothing, right? Because if you times anything by 0, it becomes 0. So if you're at this point of the economy, if the tax rate is 0, if you want to increase our tax revenue, we should increase the size of the tax. So if you look at the distribution of our tax curve, it's a very curve shaped. That when the tax size is high, so at a higher rate, 100% over here, and 100%, your tax revenue is lower. But on this side, same thing, that if your tax rate is at very low, at 0%, then your tax revenue also very low. But somewhere in the middle over here, our government tax revenue is maximized. Concept was made popular by President Reagan, and back then there was an economist named Arthur Laffer, and this Laffer was named after him. So the argument is that in the 1980s, the tax in the economy was very high, and the economy was actually at this point of the graph over here. So President Reagan argued in Congress that if we lower our tax rate, so from this point somewhere to the left, we can actually increase our tax revenue. So everybody's better off. That everybody paying lower tax, give you more incentive to, lower tax rate, give you more incentive to work, and therefore you work more, and then the more you work, the more money you pay, and then government revenue is increased. Okay, so that's what it means. All right, so that's it for chapter 8. Does anybody have any questions? Or does anybody want me to go over some of the questions in Mind tab? I can go over some questions with you guys if you want. Okay, so any questions, guys? All right, I guess you guys are doing okay. I guess no questions. Okay, so if no questions, let's take a pause here and then continue next week. So guys, let me get everybody's name on here so it gets you extra credit for next test. So let me see who's here. All right, we have Adriana who's here. Adriana and Andrea. Robert is here. Is here, and then Ann is here. All right, let me stop this. All right, guys, remember to check your actual credit, just go on to D2L and then go to each test. Now, next to the test grade, I can't talk right now. So next to the test grade, there is a little comment section. So if you go to a comment section, you can see the extra credit for each week. All right, guys. So if no questions, I guess I will see you guys next week. All right. So good luck, and 2 o'clock on Wednesday. See you later. Bye bye.